Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Please go ahead. Hare Krishna, Puja Mataji and all the assembled devotees. Dhanavad Pranam, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shamara Sikha Devidasi from Germantown, Maryland.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Radha Seva from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Dandavat pranams to you and to all the devotees.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Puja Mataji, Madan Pranam to you and all the devotees on the call. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Rupini Padma Devidasi from Orlando, Florida.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Nikunja Rasadas from Germantown, Maryland.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining. Hare Krishna devotee. Yeah, go ahead, Mataji.
Okay. Hare Krishna to all the devotees. This is Ipsita from Orlando, Florida. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj.
Dandavat pranam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. Hare Krishna devotees, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Today we are so fortunate to have His Grace Anuttam Das Prabhuji from Maryland. And today Prabhuji is going to enlighten us on Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, verse 71 and onwards. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, whenever you are ready, please take over the call. Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, you can hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji, loud and clear.
All right, making sure everything's... Hare Krishna to all the devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. So, Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, Text 71. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ekada Deva Shastri Tu Gandharva Apasarasam Ganaha Upahuta Vishva Shrigbir Harigato Bhangayane. Ekada, once upon a time, Deva Shastre, in an assembly of the demigods. Two, indeed, Gandharva, of the inhabitants of Gandharva Loka. Apsharasam, and the inhabitants of Apshara Loka. Ganaha, all Upahuta were invited. Vishva Shrigbir, by the great demigods known as the Prajapatis. Harigata Upagayane, on the occasion of Kirtan for glorifying the Supreme Lord. Translation: once there was a Sankirtan festival to glorify the Supreme Lord in an assembly of the demigods, and the Gandharvas and Apsaras were invited by the Prajapatis to take part in it. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sankirtan means chanting of the holy names of the Lord. The Hare Krishna movement is not a new movement, as people sometimes mistakenly think. The Hare Krishna movement is present in every millennium of Lord Brahma's life, and the holy name is chanted in all the higher planetary systems, including Brahmaloka, Chandraloka, not to speak of Gandharvas and Apsaraloka. The Sankirtan movement that was started in this world 500 years ago by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is therefore not a new movement. Sometimes because of our bad luck, this movement is stopped. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his servants again start this movement for the benefit of the entire world. or indeed the entire universe. Om Agana Timirandasha Ganantanan Salakaya Chaksu Militam Jina Tismai Shri Gurave Namaha. I'll read a few verses here, but I'll do a comment on each one at a time. So here is the beginning of the story of Narada Muni talking to Yudhishthira Maharaj about his own personal life. Before he was Narada Muni, and at the point when he takes birth as the son of Lord Brahma as Narada Muni. So here it describes there's a Sankirtan festival going on, and everyone's invited by the Prajapatis to take part in it in the Gandharva Lokas. So Narada Muni was also invited, but we'll read that in the next verse. Here, Prabhupada is focusing on the Sankirtan movement, not only in the earthly planet, but throughout the universe and throughout the millenniums, in all times and all places, has been going on. He makes the point that it's not a new movement. People think this movement started, at least in the West, they think that because they had never seen it before. But in India, everyone knows what is the Sankirtan movement and understands what is the chanting of the holy names. He says, sometimes because of our bad luck, this movement is stopped. So sometimes we say luck. We usually say there is no luck. It is all our karma. But here Prabhupada says our bad luck. Sometimes this movement is stopped. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his servants again start the movement for the benefit of the entire world, or indeed the entire universe. So that is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. He appeared 500 years ago in Bengal to reestablish again this Yuga Dharma for this age of Kali, which is the chanting of the holy name. Different yugas had different processes, but in the Kali Yuga, the simple process for self-realization is chanting of the holy names. There's an interesting point to make that Prabhupada talks about often. There are 10 samskaras to be performed by people, particularly householders. So they asked Prabhupada, and he mentions it in the purports a lot. I haven't found it yet where he actually mentions all 10 of them, but you can research it and see it, and you can Google it, and it will come up with the 10 are. So Prabhupada was on a walk, and the devotee asked Prabhupada, said, Prabhupada, you tell us there's 10 samskaras we should be performing in this age, particularly for family people. And Prabhupada said, yes, there are 10 samskaras, but they are not so important. Maybe 2 or 3 we practice. The rest are not so important. So not that we become overly interested in performing so many rituals. So he quoted the marriage ceremony, the birth ceremony, and 1 or 2 others. He said the Vivaha Samskara, the marriage ceremony, is very important. But so many of the others, they're a detail and not so important. What is important is the Sankirtan Yagna, the chanting of the holy names. It's also an interesting point in this purport. Prabhupada says here, for the benefit of the entire world, or indeed the entire universe. So how did Prabhupada start this movement? We go back to the history of 1966 in New York, where he opens up his storefront and begins speaking on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam. He gave classes 3 nights a week on Bhagavad Gita, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights. And a number of devotees had joined, just a handful, all American boys and girls, well, mostly American boys. Jadharani was actually the first woman who came and seriously took up Krishna consciousness. But then at one point, Prabhupada said, today we will go out on Sankirtan, because they were doing Sankirtan, chanting of the holy names in the temple regularly. And there are some historical videos and movies of that early devotees had made. One of the early devotees who did most of these films was named Damodar Das, and he was actually our first temple president here in Washington, D.C. He started the movement in Washington in 1969, and that is where I joined, and he was my first temple president, so I'm always indebted to him, and I'm mentioning his name. And he also was an amateur filmmaker, so he made a lot of these early films that we see of Prabhupada and the devotees in 1966. So Prabhupada, one time he said, today we will go out in the public. We will go out to chant outside. And Brahmananda told me this story personally. Brahmananda was one of the early devotees, and he was the temple president in the 26 Second Avenue temple. So he said, Prabhupada said, we'll go out to the park. And Brahmananda said, well, there's the park nearby. We can walk to it, and we will go to that park. So it's maybe a 7-8 minute walk from the temple. So they go to the park in the weekend, summertime, nice weather, and they sit down. Maybe there's Kirtananda, Brahmananda, maybe 7-8 devotees all together there. Hayagriva was there. And Prabhupada has this little drum. It's actually a drum that someone had donated, just a one-headed drum. It was actually half of a bongo. If anyone has ever heard of bongo drums, they're two drums and people play them, somewhat like tablas, but they're connected. So this was a broken one, so they only had one head. And Prabhupada would play it sideways, ding, 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 and play on that drum. And that drum historically is still existing and is on display in New Vrindavan in Prabhupada's palace there. So one can see that original drum. So Prabhupada sits down with the devotees, and some people have kartals, some people have flutes. Prabhupada's playing on the drum, and he starts chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So Brahmananda said, well, I should stand up and dance, because Prabhupada taught us we should dance. The Swami step, and we all familiar with the Swami step, back and forth with hands raised, like Lord Chaitanya. So the chanting is going on. So he stands up, and then also Kirtananda stands up, and they're dancing melodiously, gently, not wildly. They put out a piece of carpet, and they're dancing. So Brahmananda told me he thought Swami would sing for 10, 15 minutes, and then we'd go home back to the temple. He said Prabhupada went on for 3 hours. And he said, I was dancing, but I didn't want to stop because I thought it would be an offense. Therefore, I had to stay up and dance for 3 hours while Prabhupada chanted nonstop. Not that he gave it to other people. Sometimes we chant and then someone else chants and someone else. Prabhupada personally chanted for 3 hours there at Tompkins Square Park. So that was the real beginning of the outside, taking Sankirtan to the public outside. And when I joined in, and this, continued as a regular practice, they would go to the park. Prabhupada didn't always go out with them. They would go on their own as Prabhupada showed them. And when I joined in 1971 in our small temple in Washington, D.C., which was just a row house off DuPont Circle, our program, after the morning program of Mangalarti and chanting japa and reading the scriptures, Bhagvatam class, and some oatmeal, simple breakfast. There were only a handful of us when I first joined. There were 8 devotees in the temple. It wasn't these big temples with a lot of people, didn't exist in the early days. And our program after breakfast, we would all go out for Sankirtan as much as possible. Maybe one or two would stay back to do some duties, cooking and things like this. We didn't have elaborate deity worship either in the early days. We only had Panchatattva picture and picture of Bhaktisiddhanta, Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada. So that was our altar, Panchatattva painting, and a picture of Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta. Also interesting to note how it was in the early days, at least when I joined. It was very informal. There was no, we understand deity worship, worshiping of the Murti, to be very strict and formal, and only Brahmanas can do it. In those early days when I joined, the arti to do the arti for the to Panchatattva, everybody got to do it. Even as an uninitiated devotee, my name was Tom at the time. They said, Tom, today is your day. You do the arti. So we would all take turns doing the arti to Panchatattva. So this was my early experience of living in the temple. And then we would go out chanting. And we would go out chanting for, again, 5-6 hours. This was the Hare Krishna movement. You'll see old movies of the devotees and old pictures chanting, drums, cymbals, like that. And we would go downtown Washington, D.C. And later when I moved to New York, we would go downtown Manhattan. We would go to different parts of Manhattan, 42nd Street, Times Square, all these different places, and have Sankirtan out for the public. And this is still going on. This is the Krishna conscious movement. Prabhupada actually personally wrote me in my initiation letter, and he said, go for street Sankirtan as much as possible. So this was Prabhupada's desire, this bringing this out to the public. So indeed, the entire universe. So this is an important point. And so they're having this Sankirtan gathering to glorify Lord Krishna in the upper planetary system. This is not on Earth. This is in another planet. This is in the heavenly planets. So we can understand from the Vedas that there is civilization and that there are higher planets, middle planets, and lower planets, lower meaning less civilized, or hellish planets, they would say, throughout the universe, and that there's life throughout the universe. This concept that there is only life on Earth is not accepted in the Vedic literatures. So we should make a note of that. And even Prabhupada would say that if they would talk about the moon, he would say they probably didn't go to the moon, although they keep saying we're going. But Prabhupada said, then we asked the question, how is it we don't see a higher civilization? Moon is considered a heavenly planet. Prabhupada explains that if they think they are so advanced to reach the moon, you don't think that the people in higher planets are civilized enough to, shall we say, not make themselves visible to outsiders who are coming unannounced or uninvited. So we cannot, the powers of the demigods and the people in the higher planets are beyond our conception. But indeed, the Sankirtan movement is going on throughout the universe, and devotees of the Lord are there throughout the universe. So Narada Muni is invited here to take part in this, by the Prajapatis, to take part in this Sankirtan party. So then we'll read the next verse. Text 72, I'll read the English. So Narada Muni continued, being invited to the festival. I also joined, and surrounded by women, I began musically singing the glories of the demigods. Because of this, the Prajapatis, the great demigods in charge of the affairs of the universe, forcibly cursed me with these words: because you have committed an offense, you may immediately become a Sudra, devoid of beauty. So the purport, I'll read. So as far as kirtan is concerned, the Shastra says, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. One should chant the glories of the Supreme Lord and the holy names of the Supreme Lord. It is clearly stated, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. One should chant about the glories of Lord Vishnu, not any demigod. Unfortunately, there are foolish persons who invent some process of kirtan on the basis of a demigod's name. This is an offense. Kirtan means glorifying the Supreme Lord, not any demigod. Sometimes people invent Kali Kirtan or Shiva Kirtan, and even big sannyasis in the Mayavadi school say that one may chant any name and still get the same result. But here we find that millions and millions of years ago, when Narada Muni, as a Gandharva, he neglected the order to glorify the Lord and became mad in the association of women, he began to chant otherwise. Thus, he was cursed to become a Sudra. His first offense was that he went to join the Sankirtan party in the company of lusty women. And the other offense was that he considered ordinary songs, like cinema songs and other songs, to be equal to Sankirtan. For this offense, he was punished with becoming a Sudra. So this is a very important point of Kirtan. What is Kirtan? Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Kirtan means glorifying Lord Vishnu, Lord Vishnu's avatars, glorifying Lord Krishna. Lord Chaitanya specifically taught us that the Maha Mantra of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare is the easiest process to revive our dormant God consciousness. And this is what we practice here as followers of Lord Chaitanya. But there are many songs to Lord Vishnu. There's the Dasa Avatar songs, Prabhupada sings those. Any song that's glorifying Vishnu, Krishna, Vishnu avatars is bona fide. But then there are people who invented, well, they're all singing about Vishnu, but I'm a devotee of Kali, particularly in Bengal, where Kali is very popular, or Shiva is also very popular throughout India. People sing kirtans to Shiva, kirtans to Kali kirtan. But Prabhupada says, and specifically the some sannyasis from the Mayavadi school propagate this because their idea is that it's all one. The Mayavadis believe that it's all one and you can worship any god, any demigod, and get the same result as worshiping Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. So this is not the case. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita condemns the worship of the devatas. He said only worship of me is recommended. So it's also interesting to note here in the purport and in the verse, let's see, it says here, surrounded by women. He said, being invited to that festival, I also joined, and surrounded by women, I began musically singing the glories of the demigods. So you can kind of imagine the demigods are there. They've invited, he was a Gandharva at the time, so he was invited also. But he sat down, and anyone who is a man understands that if one is in association of beautiful, lusty women, one gets a little, shall we say, attracted to them. So he wants to impress women. Men generally want to impress a beautiful woman. So he thought, I'll impress them by singing praises to the demigods. But the demigods didn't like this. We're having a kirtan for glorifying Lord Vishnu, not glorifying the different devatas of the universe. So it says here there were two offenses. His first offense was that he went to join the Sankirtan party in the company of lusty women. And the other offense was that he considered ordinary songs like cinema songs and other such songs to be equal to Sankirtan. So Prabhupada further takes this Sankirtan, the concept of singing Devata names and following it even into cinema songs. Sometimes, particularly, let's take example here. You go to a Hindu wedding. What kind of music are they playing? They're playing Bollywood music. I went to a devotee wedding once, and they started playing some Bollywood music, and I was with one of our initiated Indian devotees, senior devotee, very good Brahmana. He turned to me, he said, "This is the degradation of Hinduism," when he heard them playing the Bollywood music. So this is not Sankirtan. Of course, a wedding, if one is a devotee wedding, he should have devotional music. That would be the best. For non-devotees, they're not there to glorify Vishnu anyway. They're there for a wedding. That's their business. But it does not make it a spirit. It's supposed to be a samskara. A wedding is one of the 10 samskaras. So it should be a spiritual atmosphere, and glorification of God and music to glorify God should be played at weddings. But people are karmis, people are sudras, they play cinema songs. So that is their misfortune. They miss the punya, they miss the blessings of the Supreme Lord. Maybe you'll get blessings from the cinema people, but you won't get blessings from the Supreme Lord. So he was punished by this, by doing this, by becoming a Sudra. So then we go on to the next verse. Although I took birth as a Sudra from the womb of a maidservant, I engaged in the service of Vaishnavas who were well versed in Vedic knowledge. Consequently, in this life, I got the opportunity to take birth as the son of Lord Brahma. And the purport, Prabhupada says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead says in the Bhagavad Gita 9:32, Mam hi parja vyapasritya ye pisu papa yonaya. Striyo vaishastata sudras tepi yanti param gatim. O son of Prita, those who take shelter of me, although they be lower birth, women, Vaishyas, which are merchants, as well as Sudras, workers, can approach the supreme destination. Unquote. It doesn't matter whether a person is born as a Sudra, a woman, or a Vaishya. If he associates with devotees repeatedly or always, sadhu sangha, he can be elevated to the highest perfection. Narada Muni is explaining in this relation to his own life. The Sankirtan movement is important, for regardless of whether one is a Sudra, Vaishya, Malecha, Yavana, or whatever, if one associates with pure devotees, follows his instructions, and serves pure devotees, his life is successful. This is bhakti. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. Bhakti consists of serving Krishna and his devotees very favorably. Anibilasa Dasunyam. If one has no desire other than to serve Krishna and his devotees, then his life is successful. This is explained by Narada Muni through the practical example from his own life. So here we see that he takes birth as the Sudra in his mother's a maidservant. Basically, she's running a cafe or a place, a restaurant where people come and come for food, and she's running the place. So she's the maidservant. And the Vaishnavas and the great devotees come there, particularly during the rainy season. This is all described in earlier cantos of the Srimad Bhagvatam. The whole story is given in great detail. But he gets to serve these Vaishnavas, and he gets to hear their discussions. And by doing this, in his next life, he takes birth as the son of Lord Brahma. And he's also in our Sampradaya, Narada Muni. So Brahma and Narada, this is the Brahma Sampradaya. Narada Muni is one of our heads of our Sampradaya. So next birth, he gets cursed. He takes birth in a lower, in a Sudra family, but by the mercy of the devotees and by his good fortune, he associates with the devotees. And next life, he's one of the best devotees there is. So Prabhupada makes the point here. We hear this term Sudra, Vaishya, and in earlier purports, this was discussed a lot, the Varnashram. I meet a lot of people, Indian families, they say, we don't believe in this caste system, and nor do we. But Krishna says, Chaturvanya Maya Shishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasa. He says, I've invented this, I've created this for running the society within this world. These four classes of people. Guna karma. He says guna karma vibhagasa. So guna means by one's quality and karma means by one's work. He doesn't say by the birth. Prabhupada does mention, of course, obviously taking birth in a Brahmin family or a devotee family specifically is a good start, but it is not the all in all. And Prabhupada did say that the whole degradation of Vedic culture in this age of Kali is because of the Brahmanas becoming, shall we say, they were puffed up. They didn't want to give their knowledge to everyone. They thought they had a special position in society, and they do. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanataya Cha Jagadataya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namah. We worship the cows, we worship the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas, a true Brahmana, not a, Prabhupada says you can go buy a thread in the market for 2 cents, not that type of Brahmana, but a Brahmana who actually practices his devotional principles and the principles given in Bhagavad Gita, which are Samo, Damo, Tapaso, Cham, Shantir, Arjavam, Evacha, Ganam, Vigyanam, Astikyam, Brahmakarma, Sabhavajam. Peacefulness, truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, these are all, knowledge, realized knowledge. Ganam, Vigyanam. So this is a Brahmana. But then, so one may, in India, the caste system is there, but it is not taken up as the right idea. It is taken up by this birth only, and there are limitations in your life because of your birth, because people don't understand this spiritual concept of Varnashram. But so what did Prabhupada do? Prabhupada comes to America. Obviously, there are no Brahmanas to help. There's no Brahmanas are joining the Sankirtan movement. Who do we have? We have a group of young boys and girls, men and women, in their 20s. The first devotees were all of us. When I joined, every devotee in our movement. I remember in our temple, we're young. In our temple in Brooklyn, we had, in 1973, we had about 75 men and about 75 women as full-time devotees living in the temple. And I was given the task to find out who was over 25 so we can register, so we can insure our vehicles in their name, because once you're over 25, insurance is cheaper. If you're under 25, insurance is higher due to the liability of the, being young and restless and reckless. This is the idea of the insurance companies. So I checked amongst our men. We only had 8 men out of 75 who were over 25 years old. So everyone who joined this movement was young. Mostly college. Some people had finished college. Some people had done a little college. Some people were everyone was more or less fed up with their prospects in the world. Why does one become? There's 4 reasons why one becomes. And one of them is, he's looking for economic stability, or he's searching for the absolute truth. There's 4 main reasons why people become devotees. So all of us generally were frustrated. We were attempting to be successful and have a happy life, but it wasn't working out that way. And we had some piety from past lives. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, from our past lives, if we're incomplete in our devotion and we have not achieved perfection, we take birth either in a aristocratic family, wealthy family, because if you're born in a wealthy family, you don't have to struggle with money. Your family has money, so survival is not an issue. Or you're taking birth as in a Brahmin or a devotee family, particularly a devotee family. Again, Prabhupada also quotes Kaloa Sudra Sambhavan. In this age, everyone is Sudra. He says that often. So I was wondering, everyone's Sudra. Okay, I keep hearing that. And then I heard a lecture from Prabhupada, and he described why everyone is Sudra. He says, because no one is following the samskaras. There's 10, like I said. There's a samskara for the conception of a child. One should be performing pious, one should be chanting, reading scripture. It's not that you conceive a child after, partying and getting drunk. A lot of people are conceived that way, but a devotee does not do that. He leads he has a spiritual day, he has a spiritual life on the day of the conception of a child. So he said, no one's doing this. Everyone is just, making children without any responsibility. So therefore, everyone is born Sudra. Of course, obviously, in India, there are some, particularly South India, there are a lot of pious Brahmin families, and they do follow these samskaras. But in general, most people, particularly in the West, for sure, and a lot in India too, no one is following anything. They're just having children out of lust. So, Prabhupada says here, he says, the Sankirtan movement is important for regardless of whether one is a Sudra, a Vaishya, a Malecha, a Yavana, or whatever. If one associates with a pure devotee, follows his instructions, and serves the pure devotee, his life is successful. So Prabhupada came to America. All he had was, Western boys and girls. We were already addicted to all the sinful activities. We were brought up that way. We were not born, most of us were not born, and at least the Western people were not, our parents were not vegetarians. We weren't brought up that way. Anyway, everybody knows what is sin. There are 4 regulated principles that Prabhupada asked us to follow, and basically no one was following those principles before they were devotee, Western people. There are a lot of pious Indians, of course, who come from good families and were brought up properly. They're fortunate. But Prabhupada didn't find those people when he came to America. There were very few Indian immigrants in America in the mid-60s. Immigration of Indians to America from India more or less started in the early 70s and built up more and more 70s, 80s as the immigration laws changed over the years and they let different people in. Also, there's a lot of professionals in America, a lot of Indian doctors, a lot of engineers, because immigration had regulation. We're not inviting just anyone without an education. We only want the best of the best. So we want people with college degrees. That's why you see the Indian community in America as very successful and very educated, because the American government filtered out the immigration, who could come. And that is why, nowadays we have a good group of Indian devotees all over the world. There's someone in Australia listening right now and other parts of the world. Indians went throughout the world for economic reasons, obviously. They didn't come to America to chant Hare Krishna. They came to America for job opportunities, but they were educated and they were intelligent. And they were also pious, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. And they became involved with the Hare Krishna movement later on. But in the early days, there were these pious Indians were not around. Very, very few, very few. So Prabhupada's early disciples and up through the 70s, not until really the 80s, due to our Indian communities start developing more and taking initiation and becoming serious. Early days, it was us, the American boys and girls, from all different backgrounds. Some were Christian background, some were Jewish background, a lot were Jewish background. I was Christian background. A lot were no background, not brought up with any religion, no piety at all, atheists. But they also became devotees by associating with the Sankirtan people, Sankirtan chanting out in the streets. They met the devotees. By their good fortune, they bought a book. Prabhupada wanted book distribution. He wanted people to read, if they're fortunate enough to read, they're fortunate enough to buy the book, but also they have to be fortunate enough to open it up and try to understand it. They're not easy to understand, these literatures. But Krishna is within everyone's heart. We all know that. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshu rajuna tisati. I'm in everyone's heart. So the devotee from the outside tries to give them Krishna consciousness and God within us. If we're pious enough and tuned in, if we can hear Krishna speaking to us, we take a book and we open it up and we read it. And if we're very fortunate, we start to understand Krishna consciousness. So we are not in India, due to this caste consciousness. There were groups of people that came to Prabhupada, and particularly, I remember once in Hyderabad, other places too, to complain. And even this happened with Bhakti Siddhanta, so it's nothing new. Complain that you are ruining the Hindu religion because you are giving this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to the Sudras, the Malechas, the women, the unqualified people. And Prabhupada would say that this is by guna and karma. Everyone has the right to be Krishna conscious. Everyone has the opportunity. Krishna says, Prabhupada said in this purport, Mami Parcha Vipasricha, Striyo Vaishyas Tata Sudras Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. Whether you're, so-called lower caste or woman, doesn't matter. In the West, they've never even heard of these terms. We just understand, we have no caste. We're casteless. We're Malechas and Yavadins. We're meat eaters and we're atheists. That is what we are in the West. But all these groups of people can go to Krishna, can go back to Godhead by the association of, Prabhupada says here, bhakti consists of serving Krishna and his devotees very favorably. Anyabilasa Sunyam. That's a verse. That's a Rupa Goswami quoted this verse, or it makes up this verse in the Nectar of Instruction, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He doesn't quote the whole verse, but I will. Anyabilasa Sunyam Gyanakama Anavritam Anakulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttamam. So the bhakti, the uttama bhakti, the best bhakti, is the devotional service that is unmotivated, a hoitaki, a pratyata, has no motivation. He's simply serving. Sometimes we see, particularly in poor areas, people join the movement for economic benefit. In India also, this is, sometimes true. Poor people join. They get more rice, they get prasadam, and they get dhoti and clothes. So they're better than what they were. But as they advance in Krishna consciousness, they have no motivation. We're not joining to make some money. We're not joining to live in a nice building, particularly the devotees in the West, because we already have nice houses. We all come from, Prabhupada said, all my disciples from the West, they're all educated boys and girls. They all come from wealthy families, or wealthy enough, at least middle class. So we didn't join because we wanted food. We joined because we wanted Krishna consciousness. We wanted to develop love of God. That is why the Western boys and girls joined. So 8:06 right now. you know how these verse classes are. We could go on talking forever, but we'll give an opportunity to anyone has any questions. Then thank you very much, Hare Krishna. So any comments out there?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Guru Maharaj Prabhupada. Thank you for the, wonderful class. I always, whenever I listen to you, I'm always thinking to myself that how fortunate, you, all Prabhupada disciples must feel to get his personal association. Um, and how enigmatic and powerful his association would have been. Because and it can only we can only experience that through your words. I don't necessarily have a question, but I just wanted to I always think about this, and like when we talk about guru, we talk about Vani and Vapu, right? So with Prabhupada gone, Prabhu, I just wanted to know, how did you disciples continue to follow on his instructions, irrespective of his presence? Because that is something I very, very much fear. Because to be very honest, Prabhu, even when in the presence of my Guru Maharaj, it is just so much difficult to continuously keep following the instruction. I mean, it is a struggle. I pray sincerely to our deities, our home deities, to Radha Madan Mohan, to allow me to continuously engage. But I do sometimes fear of the inevitable, and how would I continue, my sadhana. So can you speak something about that?
Well, first point is that Prabhupada himself only was personally in the association of his guru 5 or 6 times. So all these years, he wasn't one of the inside members living in the mott, or one of the, he was a householder living outside. He said only 5 or 6 times I had that association. But he said, I always carried the instructions within my heart. He said about coming to the West, obviously it took a long time. He wrote 3 volumes of the Bhagvatam. So he felt that now I'm ready. So at the age of 69, which is, the age of a lot of our devotees who are old devotees, I'm 71 now, and we didn't know what old age was when we were young. I'll put it that way. We thought, oh, just gray hair, walk with a stick. But actually, old age is not fun. Old age is full of pains. Knees are bad, back is bad, different. I've already had 2 heart attacks, and I'm still here. But so to go out on a boat with no money, this is an amazing thing. So Prabhupada said about that experience of his that I was duty bound. His exact words, duty bound. I felt duty bound to my guru to follow his instructions, which was to preach in English to the Western world, to spread Krishna consciousness in the English medium. So he felt this duty to do this. Of course, yeah, sure. I mean, Prabhupada left the world in 1977, and it was, some devotees couldn't continue. Prabhupada says in the books that when the guru leaves, there is confusion and chaos, and that of course Prabhupada set up a system for ISKCON to manage, and that had already been going on with the GBC members, temple presidents. So the society is still here today. Here we are, 45 years later, 50 years later after Prabhupada's disappearance. and still going on. And devotees have stepped up to take responsibilities to preach. They've always been preaching. I didn't meet Prabhupada first. I met Prabhupada's disciples. So devotees have always been preaching and spreading and making devotees. Prabhupada himself, of course, in the very beginning, he was the main preacher. He was the only preacher. No one knew anything. He was cooking. He was running everything in 26th Avenue. It was all, he did everything. And he was trying to teach these young boys and girls who had no background or culture of Krishna consciousness to gradually come up. And we do see that, obviously, Prabhupada left in 77. My wife was initiated by Sarup Damodar Swami. He left maybe 17, 18 years ago. It's a heartbreak if when the guru passes away. But we all know that we're eternal, and our job is to ultimately go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada said that when I give initiation, I take the sins of my devotees. So, and this is the reality of the guru-student relationship. And that I will personally come back if my disciple does not complete his process of going back to Godhead. In other words, he is slack and takes birth again somewhere, somehow, obviously in some better position. I will personally come back and deliver them. Exactly how that will happen. It's not that Prabhupada is going to appear in his physical form, but through instructions, through dreams, Prabhupada guides us like that. So it's of course, a lot of people have a sentiment. They don't have this duty concept that Prabhupada had. And if the spiritual master leaves, and they fall apart. And of course, Indian people have shall we say, a more stronger footing because they're born in devotees. Their families are devotees. They got generations of devotees going back, more or less, depending on the family. So at least they understand these things. So no one's going to say it's easy when your spiritual master passes away. Bhakti True passed away. Gopal Krishna Maharaj passed away. The others are all old. It will happen in the next 10 years. All of the senior Prabhupada disciples, all of the Prabhupada disciples will pass away eventually, whether they're gurus or not. We'll all be moving on to our next life. And just with Lord Chaitanya was there. Then he didn't pass away, but he ended his pastimes, and the next generation, like this. So it's not easy, but at least there are other devotees around us. There's always someone left to continue preaching, and we're supposed to make new people. So
association will empower us to continue following our instructions.
Even when the gurus, it's not that devotees didn't have problems when Prabhupada was on the world.
Correct.
Devotees fell down, devotees left, during Prabhupada's time in this world. That's because they were just weak, or, Maya's, it's a battle. Prabhupada said we're in a battle against Maya. So, there are forces at work. There's spiritual forces, there's material forces. So one has to pray and practice and do what Prabhupada, follow these principles, do what the guru tells us to do. And that is our strength. Read Bhagavad Gita, read the Srimad Bhagvatam, in this way. Krishna is not here in this world either anymore, but he is in this world because he's there in the Bhagavad Gita, he's there in the deity form, he's there in the holy name. There are many manifestations of how the Lord is still in this world, even though we're not the Pandavas. We weren't fortunate enough to be with Krishna. But we do know, even when Krishna was in this world, there were many people, in fact, majority of people did not see him as God. They saw him as a great king, leader. Only a few people, Vidura, the Pandavas, understood Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. So just keep friends with devotees, keep strength with devotees, avoid the here he's describing Prabhupada said the cinema music, don't become a cinema bhakta, become a Krishna bhakta. All these movie stars in India, everyone knows their names. They're all like God, and in America too. The cinema people are all like worshipped, and the musical people are all worshipped, by the general masses. But in a sense, that's probably that is an illusion. Like Elvis Presley, the Beatles, these are famous people in the past of American culture. And in the East, you have so many Bollywood singers and songs. Everyone knows the songs; they sing the songs. So we should not become. That is the Maya of this world. To take our mind off. We'd rather sing a cinema song than chant Hare Krishna. We try to avoid that.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Just a quick follow-up, because you did mention dreams. How do we interpret when your Guru Maharaj or any of that, they appear in your dreams?
Dreams?
How do you interpret that? Is that through mercy? Because there are instances where I've gotten those dreams and I don't know what to make of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, Prabhupada didn't, in the scriptures in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it does mention dreams and dreams about instructions coming in dreams. Prabhupada himself did not speak of. He did tell. Prabhupada did speak actually the dream when he was a householder. He had a dream that Bhakti Siddhanta was asking him to take sannyas and preach. And he said he woke up and he said, Prabhupada said, I thought that was horrible. I woke up, this is horrible. I can't do this. So Prabhupada had a dream about Bhakti Siddhanta. So, we don't, we cannot always say that every dream is absolute truth. But if it's within the context of proper understanding, we can take it as our guru or God speaking to us. It says in the scriptures, God speaks to the devotee. God is within the heart. He directs the devotee. So one has to be tuned to that station. If you're on the cinema station, you're not going to hear God's talking. You got to flip the channel to the Krishna channel, and then you will hear God's chant, God's instructions to us, and the spiritual master's instructions. So, but Sadhu, Shastra, Guru. There's three. There's a just like we have in government, the president, the Congress, and the three branches, the judicial. So in Krishna consciousness and Vedic culture, we have the sadhus, the saintly people. We have the scriptures, and we have the spiritual master. So we can check with another branch to make sure what we're understanding is correct. To make sure they're all in agreement. So
thank you so much, Prabhu.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is Geeta. Thank you so much for this very, very nectaring class. I had a question regarding Srila Prabhupada. Since I'm relatively not well versed with the scriptures, that he was Gopi in his previous birth. Is that right?
There's some people that speculate what is Prabhupada's rasa. What is his rasa? He never spoke of it. People, try to figure it out, but he never spoke of it. So we do know that the spiritual master is eternally liberated, and he's sent by Krishna, even though seemingly in his early life he was not. He said, my family, of course, were devotees. He dedicates the Krishna book to his father, who taught him and brought him up in Krishna consciousness. And he talks about Jagannath Rath Yatra when he was a child. He said, my father always had Shelagram Shila around his neck. So he wasn't born in a devotee family. And Prabhupada always said the spiritual master will manifest. That's why he didn't appoint someone, before his departure. He said the spiritual master will manifest himself. Exactly to say Prabhupada was a gopi, or Prabhupada's in Madhurya Ras, or he's in the different rasas. He never spoke on it, so it's really something that we don't speculate on either. We can just know that Prabhupada is a pure devotee. He never fell down. He spread Krishna consciousness. He made thousands of devotees. So that's how we see Prabhupada.
Well, thank you, Prabhuji.
And
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
he was standing up for Krishna when people would criticize. There's lots of people in India. I know Krishna, or Krishna's misunderstanding. Prabhupada was fighting for Krishna all the time to present him properly.
Right. No, I went to Vrindavan about a few months ago, and I met someone from the Gaudiya Math, and they showed me a painting and told me that this is the Gopi as Srila Prabhupada now. So that's why I was wondering,
Well, they may say things like that, but Prabhupada never said, I am this gopi, I'm that gopi, and I've come to, give you Krishna consciousness. He never said. That's an interesting story you're telling. They're saying like that, because a lot of the Gaudiya Math, Prabhupada said, I never got any good help from them. So most of them he said they were a little envious of him. So most of them don't speak about Prabhupada. But it's you won't find that in ISKCON. Any devotee will not say, yes, my guru is this gopi or that gopi. He never said it in lecture. He never put it in a book. It's not known. So. I mean, it's nice to think your spiritual master. I mean, he's not an ordinary, Sakshat Hari. He's not different from. He's Krishna's representative. So we see him like that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
I mean, obviously, Prabhupada's gone back to Krishna, or he's continuing his preaching somewhere. We don't know, but we know anyone who's Krishna consciousness does go back to Godhead, and pure devotees are sent sometimes. Krishna sends them to this world. You go and spread Krishna consciousness. So, and it's a special position. Mm-hmm.
Haribol Prabhu, I have a question. Sandeep here. Thanks for sharing your personal experience with while growing up when you joined the movement. My question is, how did you convince your parents or your friends that this is the best for me? And because it's so difficult to deal with, the kids are grown up and they are asking these questions like.
Well, yeah, of course, I also have children. I also have grandchildren. So, they're growing up in the, public Western world. I'm not living in India. Of course, living in India is not necessarily Krishna conscious either. It's better, but not perfect. My parents were not devotees. They never became devotees. They were just liberal enough to let me. My mother used to say, "It's a phase. He'll grow out of it." So I'm 71 now, and I still haven't grown out of it yet. So, some parents are very anti. Not in favor at all. They feel it's a cult. It's dangerous. This was actually more popular in the mid 70s, anti-cult movement. But nowadays, my parents just let me be devotee. They visited me at the temples. They were supportive of my choice of life, and later I became, as a brahmachari, they were thinking, when am I going to get a job, and when am I going to join the world? Eventually I did get married, and eventually I did make a living. and supporting myself. So, from the external viewpoint, they saw me as a success. Of course, from our viewpoint, I saw myself as a success as being Krishna conscious. Not that I survived in this world. Of course, our children, they also, being brought up in Western culture, whatever country you may be in, Australia, London, America, or even in India, there is distractions, shall we say, and temptations. That is why it's important to have a strong, program at home. Read to your children, have kirtan with your children. And one thing I did with my children when they were young, my children are now in their early 40s. And like I said, I have grandchildren. I have a granddaughter that's early 20. We had a property that had a barn and had some land. I got a cow. I got 2 cows because I said I want my children to know that the cows are lovely and friendly, and I didn't want my children to ever be tempted to go non-veg. So they had the pet as the cow. In America, they have the pets as the dogs or the cats, but not everyone has the land or the barn for that. It's not easy to do that. Most people can't do it, but I did that for my children. Yeah. So.
Yeah, very, very nice, bro. Thank you so much.
My kids are all good devotees. My daughter got initiated when she was 12. My daughter's married to Gauravani, the kirtan singer. For those.
Okay.
And so his children, he has 3 children, ages 16, 19.
Yeah. We went to go. Yeah. So you live very close to Gauravani's place, Prabhu? Gauravani Prabhu's place? Okay. Because I saw you there helping out with Radhanath Maharaj's program.
And for those who are interested, Radhanath Swami is having his yearly program at Gauravani's house.
Yeah.
In July 1st. So you're all at in the evening. So
definitely, Prabhu. We are definitely coming. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And because Gauravani is the singer and he does kirtan all the time, his children have been brought up with kirtan, and they're blessed with good voices. Not everyone has a good voice, unfortunately, but for those who have good voices, and they can sing for God, sing for Krishna. And so they're all good kirtan singers, harmonium players, and all of that also. So that is the meaning of taking birth either in the Brahmin family or in the aristocratic family. It's not by chance that someone takes birth in a devotee family. But it's also true that not every devotee's children are going to become good devotees or reasonable devotees. Some of them may fall into Maya. It happens. So, the world is harsh. I'll put it that way. It's a constant battle. So.
Thanks, Prabhu. Haribol.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Raj, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Anutama Prabhuji, for the wonderful class and about the different samskaras. Prabhuji, my question for you is, you have seen Prabhupada and you have heard from him. And, when we read about Prabhupada, it's from the books and what we hear from his disciples like you. Sometimes I see there are contradictions in terms of following the rules. So we're focusing on the samskaras. Now, Prabhupada, sometimes he was, in order to attract other souls to Krishna consciousness, he was willing to bend the rules sometimes. Like we hear that he went to a function where out of love, the devotees, not initiated devotees or in Krishna consciousness, but they had vegetarian food, but they might have had onions in it, and he would say, there's no onions you can eat. And so he was willing to lower some of the high standards for the sake of a higher purpose. Is that how you understand Srila Prabhupada's mood? Because sometimes we hear that devotees are, stuck in the echo chambers of our own mission to say, hey, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But we don't do outreach as much as we should, because we think, oh, they don't follow. We can't give our association because we might get tainted. But isn't Prabhupada's mission, just looking at the mood of Srila Prabhupada, he was willing to go from Vrindavan to the Bowery, where things were really not in good shape. So what? How can we understand Srila Prabhupada with his wonderful?
Well, to answer the question about the onions, I know that story. There's probably a couple of examples. That was specifically in India, and he was invited to, a fair, aristocratic family, influential family, and apparently they cooked something with onions in it. And Prabhupada was with his disciples. This was in the early 70s, and the devotee said, Prabhupada, there's onions in the vegetable. And Prabhupada said, that's all right. Don't worry about it. Because he didn't want to offend his guests. The guests made a big effort, invited all the devotees. They didn't understand that we didn't use onions. So it's not like he purposely went out and ate something with onions, but he allowed it because he didn't want to offend the guests, the hosts, sorry. The hosts were making an effort to please Prabhupada, to invite him to feed the devotees out of their ignorance, shall we say, of the diet. They put onions in, but so Prabhupada was being practical. He didn't stand up and say, we cannot eat this food. This is all bad food. That would greatly. You can imagine what the host would feel like if that happened. Be heartbroken. So Prabhupada was practical in that way. Of course, we know the early story. Not that so. That was in India, and I think that's the only places where that happened on rare occasions. Bending the rules. I mean, Prabhupada in the beginning, Prabhupada said, "I'm very liberal." Obviously, to start this movement with Western people, it's not like Prabhupada is coming. It's not like being a strict Brahmana in India and you're, only accepting, pure students. Prabhupada had to take whoever came along and try to train them to become, but he didn't compromise on the four regulated principles. It's not like he said no meat eating, no illicit sex life, no gambling, no intoxication. So that was a regulation. I mean, people came who were, taking intoxication, and they were coming as guests. That was their business. But to get initiation, after they became serious, Prabhupada said, this is what you need to do. And he also arranged to get them married. He said they're coming as boyfriends and girlfriends, which is not Vedic culture. So he said, you must be married if you want to, make advancement in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada himself would do the wedding ceremony because Prabhupada was the only priest. we had no brahmanas, we had no priests. Prabhupada did everything. He was doing the whole show in the early days. So one has to be practical in time, place, and circumstance, but generally speaking, we have no difficulty following these principles wherever we go. So I think that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Anutama.
Be practical in preaching, at least to new people. Like if you meet a new person, somebody comes to the temple as a guest, we don't tell them, oh, you have to be a vegetarian and you have to, not gamble and you can't smoke cigarettes. And, that's not the first thing you say to people. You just say, come and chant Hare Krishna. And that's what Prabhupada did. Come and chant Hare Krishna with us and take this nice prasadam. And, as you become more attracted and more serious, then you can go step by step with people to bring them up to the Brahminical platform, shall we say. It's an art. Preaching is an art. Preaching to people. And that's what we do. We bring, people from nothing, to something, to something emotional. We're not just, we didn't advertise Brahmins only invited, to the program, pure people invited only. No, everyone's welcome. Like I go to temples in India, they have some temple, some other temple, Hindus only.
Mm.
They don't let us in. They don't understand. Could be a Hindu, could be a meat-eating Hindu, could be a drunkard Hindu, but as long as you're a Hindu, could be Hindu in bad character. But so we're trying to elevate. Prabhupada would say to the reporters, we're teaching people how to become ideal moral characters. Exact words with one reporter in the West was, we're teaching boys and girls to have or develop ideal moral character. So he was explaining to the reporter, Western reporter who doesn't know anything, what is this movement about? So Prabhupada explained something simple. He didn't say, we're teaching, a love of God or something esoteric that they wouldn't, ideal moral character they can understand. So Prabhupada said that on occasions to Western reporters. Okay.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And also, just to follow up on that, we are discouraged from taking association of devotees because we fear fall down. Is that a fear we should have, or should we give our association taking the risk so that we are trying to give Krishna to them? So how can we balance that risk?
You have to understand what association means. I mean, obviously, most people have a job. They go to a job which is not full of devotees, unless you work at the Bhagvatam hospital. That's something unique. But most of us have jobs in the West or wherever country we're in.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
And
Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
so you don't associate means you can be around these people. You have to be around these people, but you don't intimately. You don't go to their parties. They invite you over for barbecue. Invite you to the bar Friday night after work. You don't go to these things. My wife was a public school teacher for 20 years. And, just she had friends and they knew she was a devotee of Krishna, and they knew that she didn't break principles. So sometimes she would go out with them, but she would, keep her vows just to maintain they were, friends. So she didn't want them to think otherwise, but always keeping her vows. So.
Yes, Maharaj. So it's very nice that she went and she's showing her example to them that she's also living in this world, but following these principles. And so that might attract them. But she did put herself on the risk of, being in the association and, getting influenced. But of course, because of her practice, she is not influenced. But shouldn't others also take some of that risk? We don't see so much by devotees mostly. They tend to avoid non-devotee company, even to try to preach to them. They try to keep their distance a lot.
Well, I don't see that. I mean, we have active college preaching programs. We're trying to reach out to the students. We go on Harinam. We're out in the middle of the streets with people. People are all kinds of, we meet everybody out in the street. We try to sell books to people. We're meeting everyone, talking to them for a few minutes. So, I don't know of any devotees that are, locking themselves up in seclusion, shall we say. I mean, some people may not be preachers, and they're the pujaris or they're the cooks, and that's what they like to do. Some people are not good at dealing with other people, the personal thing, but most devotees want to give Krishna to other people, particularly a lot of outreach programs that there are in ISKCON.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you for the question. Mhm. Any other questions out there? We are getting a little, what is our time now? 8:40. So maybe we should, if no one else has a question, maybe, people have to go on to do things today.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My Danat Pranam, all Krishna Prabhupada Guru Maharaj. A lovely class, Prabhuji, and question answers. I was so lost in the question answers, and you know how nicely you explained. And we are so fortunate to connect with you, because I heard that, whoever met Srila Prabhupada, the life was transformed. He was such a great personality, like sometimes when we say that, our Guru Maharaj is a representative of Krishna, I really feel that for Srila Prabhupada, because we come up with so many stories, and not stories, it's a reality that he has transformed the life of I was just thinking that like he was leading a life, very pious life, with his parents and everything. And then like just how he got he showed us that this system is a parampara system, where just meeting his Guru Maharaj 1 or 2 times, and that kept like, I don't know, should use the word haunting him, or telling him that he has to. And all of a sudden he made a decision to come to the West to save all of us. At least I'm saying for myself. Otherwise, we had come here to shop, wear Western clothes, and we're very enamored by the Western society and the people, and like so many things we were enamored by here. But we were literally saved when we I think it's I'm really so much every day, like however thankful we will be to Shri Prabhupada is less, I feel like that. So thank you for connecting with us, because when, especially you being a disciple, when you speak something, of course we hear Prabhupada's lectures and everything, but uh, we always are looking for something on a personal level. So that's very, very encouraging to our spiritual life, I'm saying for myself. So thank you for the association, and always enlightening us with Krishna consciousness.
Yes, it's good to see how devotees live and navigate the Western society, in terms of children and work and marriage, and we're all faced with these things. So that we look to good devotees to see how they did it, how they survived and became.
I also look at one angle, like, some of us are not very fortunate, where, both of us, both husband and wife are not into Krishna consciousness. And in some cases, both enter into Krishna consciousness. And there are, of course, the brahmacharis are there, and so I sometimes feel that, like, since, sometimes we also become like brahmacharis, although living in Grihastha ashram. But sometimes it's hard for me to understand that children, I mean, my daughter is a devotee, but what happens is that both of us are not following. So I sometimes wonder whether I'm in a Grihastha ashram or a Grahamidhi ashram. I don't know what ashram I'm in, but I'm just continuing, keeping the light on, making sure that I follow. So and my energy comes from the association of devotees. So it is hard also, but at the same time we cannot leave also.
Well, not everyone is leading a pure devotee life, for sure. I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, not even everyone is following all the four regulated principles. Possibly, of course, those who have taken initiation, they've taken a vow to do that. But not every Hindu who comes to our temple regularly is necessarily very strict. So it's just a question of how serious we want to be, and how much we really want to develop our awareness of Krishna, and follow the footsteps of the pure devotees. And so those who are very serious, they strictly follow, and those who are less serious, they follow as best they can. But and at some point maybe they'll do better. That's the idea. there are stories of people who have even fallen away and come back, and it's a gradual process, or at least in our next life, we'll start up again. We try not to think about taking birth again. We hope we're going back to Godhead. At least that is our dream and our prayer and our hope. So,
thank you, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, one more thing.
Mhm.
This question related to prasadam, sometimes, it's a very strong statement where Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that if you don't offer and eat, then you only eat sin. So sometimes people ask this, that why is Krishna saying like this? I mean, we've been eating food for such a long time, and are we only eating sin? So I always tell them that, nothing, the only answer that comes to my mind for people who, know this, or somehow it's a strong statement to make to especially new people. So then I only think of one thing, that, nothing can be manufactured by us. Everything is coming from Krishna, so why will not be, whoever is giving, we have to be thankful to that person. So just with a gratitude heart, you offer prayers. And if not the whole prayer, you can say the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and 3 times, like that. So is that a sufficient answer to give for, for the statement made by Lord Krishna, that whatever you eat is sin,
Well,
or is there something more you can add, Prabhuji?
we learn from, well, shall we say that, that's an interesting question. Being brought up in a non-devotee Krishna family, but in a Christian family, or even the other religious family, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, all religions, they say a grace. They say a thank you to God for the food. So in our house, when I was young, we said, dear, we always say the grace before we started eating. Say, dear God, thank you, a prayer. Thank you for this food. So that's, of course it was, not pure food, and, but the idea that we recognize that God is providing, substance for us. So someone who's coming and not, not learning, not ready to do, put a special Krishna plate, deity plate, put it on in front of a picture and say the prayers. I mean, that's elaborate and for a more serious devotee. For the average person, if they just recognize God before eating, that is a good idea. And like I said, all these religious cultures, they have some kind of prayer before eating. So let them just recognize, and as they become more serious, then they can actually separately make a plate for Krishna, for their deities, or for their picture at home, and have an altar. Most people don't have an altar, or a lot of Hindus have altars, but they don't do it elaborately so much. So it's a process to get you to a higher level. So just tell them, just recognize God as thanking Him for providing subsistence. So.
Okay, Prabhuji. So that means I am on the right track, and I've been telling them the right thing, that it's a gratitude, because as we cannot produce a grain of wheat or rice or whatever,
Like Ekadasi, there's very strong statements about if you break Ekadasi, the negative side of that. But we can't expect everybody to follow it. Devotees we expect to follow Ekadasi. People that have taken seriously, they learn and they can make advancement. But so just it's a step-by-step process. Take as they become more serious, they can go deeper until they're pure devotees. But that's a long step from A to Z there.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't burn them out. The idea is don't come off as a fanatic, and don't give them things that are impractical. You have to spoon feed people little by little. Just like Prabhupada came, he didn't he was very liberal, shall we say, in the beginning. And he spoon fed. He actually physically cooked for the devotees, and he just said, just chant Hare Krishna, and this is what I want you to do. And gradually, as it's serious, learn more things.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you mentioned that your wife, she worked in the public school. So I just wanted to ask you if it is okay, if it's not like evading your privacy in any way. Did you raise your children as in the did they go to public school or home school or private school?
Oh, my kids went to public school. We didn't do homeschooling. Some people do.
Okay.
My grandchildren, for some reason, they of course it costs money to go to private school, but they felt that was important, and they always sent their 3 children to Montessori school, and then there was a Sandy Spring Friends school. They went to different private schools. My grandson's still, and now they're going to college. Of course, college is college. There's no private. You don't homeschool for college. You can't do that. And there's there's different colleges. 2 of the older granddaughters are in college. My daughter went to college. My son went to trade school. He learned a trade. So material education, it is dangerous. We should not think. Prabhupada doesn't give any credit to. If you have a big degree, you're a PhD, doesn't mean you're Krishna conscious. It just means you're intelligent in this material world. But mundane education doesn't make us spiritual. So, but we use education for occupation. We go to school to ultimately get a job. Otherwise. Of course, the old theory is the brahmanas don't work for anyone. They're educated in the scriptures, but you can't make a living being a brahmana nowadays. You have to learn something. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, trade school, something. So
Yes, Prabhuji. And also, Prabhuji, like if there is a person who's a sannyasi and he does some kind of a business, that is also okay?
That's an interesting point. Sannyasis should not be involved in business unless they're, engaging the devotees in some business to make money to support the temple. But sannyasis, I don't know who it is, and I don't know if you're going to tell me, but sannyasis should not be doing any kind of business to support themselves. That's
yes.
When one takes sannyas, one is, he's done with the world.
No, I was just the thought came to me because you mentioned about some of the brahmanas. They also have to do something for a livelihood. So even sannyasis come into a little bit into the category where, suppose, for example, they are not able to get that support. Then if they do some kind of a business and they have the talent, then like I personally see nothing bad in that, but I know it is mentioned that they're supposed to be like renounced. So,
yeah, I mean, they take, at least in ISKCON, I don't know, India is another category, general sannyasis, but sannyasi is one who's supposedly he's given up family life, generally sannyasis when you're older, he might have been married. Prabhupada was married. He took sannyas, and after taking sannyas, he didn't do it. And he had a business. He was a pharmacist, but he gave that all up. And he stayed in Vrindavan. He wrote books, and he fundraised. You need money to print books, so he had different programs to raise funds. League of Devotees. He started a membership program. He started before he started ISKCON, but he wasn't. He didn't work in a job to support himself. So I don't know of any sannyasis in ISKCON, at least, that have a business. They may instruct the householders how to do some business to support the temple or to support themselves, but I don't know of any of them.
also, Prabhuji, one last question is there. Like, for example, in some of the temples, I don't want to take any names in ISKCON, what happens is that we see the grahasthas are taking care of, like, as a president of the temple, and so sometimes there is brahmachari who's a temple president. So what they're doing is that they are managing everything, and then we don't see anyone. Of course, there's the GBC there, but we don't see like them as managing everything. So how do they? Sometimes the public can be in doubt that like, how do we know that they're the president also, they're taking care of finance also, everything they're taking care of. So is it that they are making sure the money is going to the ISKCON only of that particular area? So is there anyone who keeps a watch on the like
Answers,
what
yeah.
is the role of GBC? What is the role of the GBC? Are they watching that whatever donation is coming? Sometimes cash also comes. So these doubts are there. If you can explain how individual thing works and little bit.
Sure. Well, that is an interesting question. I mean, Prabhupada started the GBC to be more specifically to oversee the spiritual practices of the temples, to make sure that devotees are following the principles and that the program, the morning program is going on, the deity worship, just to see that things are going on properly as Prabhupada set it up. But yeah, in ISKCON, I mean, I'm not directly involved in management, haven't been for a long time. I'm an independent householder with my own finances that I produce myself, although I'm somewhat retired now. But yeah, the temple, we always want to feel, well, you should always, if you give a donation, write a check. It's made out, they usually, if you give money over the year, they will send you a statement at the end of the year for tax exempt purposes. So you can put it on your, when you file your taxes. So we get that here in Washington. They send every year. I mean, the books are the auditing, the books. I mean, we just built a new temple here in Potomac in Maryland, and there's a lot of donations came for that, and there's still a debt on that. And I mean, if one wanted to go, a CPA or an auditor, temples have that sometimes. I'm not exactly sure how it all runs, but in the old days, at least. Prabhupada said no one should be getting a salary. Now some people do get basic salary, at least to maintain themselves. Like the householders that work for full time, they get some stipend, something minimal so that way they don't have to go to the temple and say, I need to buy toothpaste today. I need $2. They've worked that out. You'd have to ask your specific temple how.
So basically, the GBC is overlooking everything, whichever temple is under them. That's how it works here, right?
Yeah, the GBC is supposed to be, making sure the temple president is not, I mean, things do happen sometimes. People do run off with money and things. Sure, I mean, we're not saying nobody's ever taken a penny from Krishna. But it should be supervised by the GBC oversees that. We expect that devotees are working, in good faith, but it is, temptation is there. But it is, there's ISKCON bank accounts. There's supposed to be 2 signers on the checks. There are checks and balances, the treasurer and all these things. As in any corporation, how does any corporation or big business keep an eye on every nickel that comes in? There is a system.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just like some questions were coming from different angles to my mind, and thank you so much for answering and for your association. Hare Krishna.
Nice to hear from you again. You're in Florida, right?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'm in Florida.
Yeah, I recognize your voice.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Questions?
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for this nectar class and question answer session. It went really long time. Sorry for the delay, but your answers were so nice that everybody was encouraged to ask the questions. And yeah, I would like to share one thing about Prabhuji, Anuttama Prabhu, that regarding Padmi Radha's question, that if our spiritual master is not there, how it will go. But I saw Prabhuji, he come with his grandkids most of the every Sunday, and like the most important thing is he said that he had 2 heart attacks, and the first I don't know, but second I know that he got heart attack and he was hospitalized, and then we were about to go and see him, but the next Sunday he was there in the temple with Mataji. And so how much he's convicted or loved to the devotee association and coming to the temple and like following the program which was told by Prabhupada, like Sunday feast program which I had to attend. So that was I learned that lesson from him, that so if our guru is not there but still his instructions we need to follow with love and conviction. So
I'll mention that my cardiologist is named Sridhar. He's an Indian doctor.
yeah. So Krishna is there with you also.
World, if there were no doctors, we'd all be, I had a stent put in, so they kept me going that way. So fortunately, you recuperate fairly quickly from that. Open heart surgery is another, that's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, it was so amazing to see you the next Sunday in the temple. So thank you so much, Prabhuji. You did 3 verses, right, Prabhuji?
What's the question?
You did 3 verses today?
Yes. Where did we end? We ended at 73.
73. Okay, so tomorrow will be 74.
Jessica Mataji, thank you for sharing this. It encourages us also to, not get too much involved with the body and health, but
Yeah,
the temple. Thank you for sharing this, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you. He is always ready to serve, like Mataji, Rama Mataji, and Prabhuji. So we all are getting inspiration from them a lot. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for being.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for your wonderful association. And I second Shamarasika what she said. It was right. When I came to the temple same Sunday, and then we were deciding to visit your home to see you how about your health, but I saw Ram Tulsi Mataji and you yourself also, and then I asked Mataji, we were supposed to come to the hospital or maybe at your home. We did not know exactly where is Prabhuji, but Mataji said, Prabhuji is here, he's all right. So that was Krishna's mercy, and it is really everything makes real sense. Like if we are surrendered to Krishna, everything Krishna takes care, Prabhuji. And we really would like to, pray to Lord Narasimha there for your good health and long life. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So if nobody has any question or comment, we can end up the call here. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुएव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। नमः की जय। प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। अनुत्तमा प्रभु की जय। Thank you so much,
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hari
Hare
Bol.
Krishna.
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol. Hari Bol.